you,
Thanks.
Julie. I'll have to, of course, welcome you all to the meeting, and outline to guests who have joined us that this is a virtual meeting due to the advice to practice social distancing by the government. The meeting is being recorded and will be available via the Council's website to be viewed as soon as is practicable following the meeting. Everyone participating in the meeting will be accessing the meeting from remote locations. Please could everybody ensure that the mobile phones that they have are switched off or switched to silent mode. Members will have received an electronic copy of the agenda. I will ask officers to present a summary of the key points. For the record, the agenda can be viewed on the Council's website. Members and officers will be speaking at various points during the meeting, and those speaking may switch their cameras on at that point, but I would ask that, with the exception of myself as chairperson, at all other times you keep your camera and microphone switched off, as this will help to minimise any background noise and interference and to ensure the connection remains as stable as possible. If any members and officers wish to raise a point or question, they should press the hands up icon on the screen hand at the top right hand side of the Microsoft Teams window, and I will come to you in the order I receive requests. Please lower your hand once you finish speaking. The chat button has been disabled for this meeting. Please do not use your microphone until I invite you to do so. Officers from Democratic Services will be supporting the meeting and will be monitoring the use of microphones throughout the meeting, and where necessary will mute those not being used. Before we formally commence, I will now ask the officer from Democratic Services to announce the names of the councillors in attendance at this meeting. I would ask the officers to introduce themselves as and when, invite them to speak during the course of the meeting. Officers too should ensure microphones and cameras are switched off when not in use. Julie, please.
Thank you, Leader. For the purposes of the recording, my name is Julie Allams. I'm the Democratic Services Officer. Today in attendance we have Councillor Hugh David, who's the Leader and Chairperson, Councillor Howell Williams, Deputy Leader, Councillor Denisha Patel, Cabinet Member for Wellbeing and Future Generations, Councillor Charles Smith, Cabinet Member for Education and Regeneration, Councillor Richard Young, Cabinet Member for Communities, and Councillor Nicole Burnett, Cabinet Member for Social Services and Early Help.
Thank you for that, Julie.
Thanks.
We will now move on to the formal part of the agenda. The first item on the agenda is to receive apologies for absence. All Cabinet members are present and all members of the Corporate Management Board are present, so there are no apologies for absence. Second item on the agenda is to receive any declarations of a personal or prejudicial interest in accordance with the members' Code of Conduct adopted by the authority in 2008. Are there any declarations of interest, please, from members or officers?
I haven't received anything.
You haven't received anything. OK. So if members do identify a declaration of interest during the course of the meeting, please don't hesitate to indicate, and of course I will bring you in. We now have for approval the minutes of the last meeting of Cabinet, which was held last two meetings of Cabinet, which were held on the 6th of April and the 9th of March. Can I have a mover and seconder for the minutes, please, as a true and accurate record of those meetings?
Move. Both minutes are correct, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'll take that as all in agreement, because I think I heard all Cabinet colleagues responding to that. And therefore, we will now receive the first report on today's agenda, and it is a report of the Interim Chief Officer for Finance, Performance and Change, and it is about proposals for the closed circuit television system, the CCTV system for the County Borough, and our plans for proposals for a smarter borough. Jill, please.
Thank you, Leader. For the purpose of the recording, my name's Jill Lewis. I'm the Interim Chief Officer, Finance, Performance and Change. I have two colleagues with me today, Martin Morgans and Phil O'Brien, and Martin will take you through some of the detail in the report. Just by way of introduction, Leader, the purpose of this report is to provide the Cabinet with the background, the current position and a proposal to recommend to Council the inclusion of a budget of £595,000 within the capital programme for implementing the Smarter Borough closed circuit television CCTV proposal. And I just wanted to say how pleased I am to be able to bring this to you today. We have all seen, I think, over the last year or so, a deterioration in the quality of our CCTV, and obviously we know that this is very important to the residents of the borough, and also in order to accelerate our recovery in terms of town centres and making people feel safe, it has become incredibly important. I also wanted to say that we are having ongoing discussions with both the Welsh Government, Westminster and indeed the Police and Crime Commissioner to see if we can attract any funding from any of the particular pots that are available for safer streets. So that's just by way of introduction. It is terribly exciting in terms of a smarter borough, and I think this will take Bridgend into cutting edge territory in terms of what we are proposing. So if I ask Martin perhaps to just take the Cabinet through a little bit of the background and the proposal.
Thank you, Jill, and a very warm welcome to both Martin and Phil. Over to you, please, Martin.
Thank you, Leader. For the purpose of the recording, my name is Martin Morgans, Head of Partnerships. So thanks, Jill, for introducing the report. So in terms of background, the Customer Community Support Unit manages the 24/7 service in terms of the closed circuit television cameras. It also provides a monitoring service for the Vale of Glamorgan. But alongside the CCTV monitoring, they provide other essential services for the Bridgend Council in terms of out-of-hours emergency calls for the highways, public protection, emergency planning, building maintenance, culvert alarms, iCall, which is a social services protection system in terms of lone working, and other areas as well. So it's a holistic provision of service, not just the CCTV. So I'd like to take you now to the current situation on page 36. 4.1 outlines the existing CCTV system across the borough has been in service for 20 years, but is now end of life. 4.2 outlines the important contribution CCTV provides towards delivering Bridgend's community safety partnerships overarching objective in terms of supporting local communities to be safe. And this is represented from the figures in 4.3 from June 2017 to May 2019, which shows that the CCTV service provided by Bridgend successfully aided the investigation of 1,484 incidents across Bridgend. This really represents the value of the service to both the police and the communities of Bridgend. As Jill pointed out, the Police and Crime Commissioner in 4.4 does not contribute any monetary level at the moment, but that's an ongoing discussion, and hopefully we'll see some positive lights on those discussions. So with regards to the proposal for the replacement of the existing CCTV estate, they are outlined in 4.6, and this will include the installation of new cameras replacing the legacy equipment, and this will look to aid the day and night economies of Borough Council, and that there will be a capital cost of £595,000. The current annual revenue cost for running the 24/7 service by the Customer Community and Support Unit is £499,000. However, it's anticipated with a new proposal that we'll see a reduction of around about £20,000 per annum, subject to a successful procurement exercise. Alongside the CCTV, the replacement project provides an opportunity to develop a smart borough. Sorry about that. A smart borough, and these opportunities outlined in 4.7. What is a smart borough? It's a place where existing networks, services are made more efficient through the use of digital technologies for the benefits of residents and businesses in that area. The council could utilise the proposed CCTV infrastructure as the foundation of a smart borough, with the CCTV at its core as the smartest sensor. So what are these opportunities in terms of smart? It could be environmental monitoring to help the council monitor the carbon footprint in real time, identifying the best opportunities to cut emissions and support the goal of net zero. Parking management, so in terms of parking spaces, they can be monitored and managed more efficiently. Waste management, understanding the status of bins in order to react to real-time fill levels, and this will avoid spillages, etc. And it allows a more efficient refuse collection itinerary. And then Wi-Fi. By overlaying Wi-Fi across the CCTV network, providing free Wi-Fi access, the council will be seen as a community enabler, offering opportunities for revenue generation and supporting the digital agenda and realising the benefits of social inclusion. These are not de facto limited opportunities. There's multiple for, but we need to explore them via business cases and working across the directorates in terms of the opportunities of utilising the new CCTV infrastructure or proposal. So I'd like to take to the financial implications on Section 8. As we discussed, the revenue costs are around about £499,000 with a potential saving of £20,000, but the capital investment is £595,000. So I'd like to take Cabinet to the recommendations for Cabinet to consider the report and recommend a report to Council approving the inclusion of the Smarter Borough Closed Circuit TV proposal within the capital programme for a budget of £590,000. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Martin. And I will bring in the Cabinet Member for Communities, Councillor Richard Young, please.
Oh, thank you, Leader. Yes. Can I thank the officers for what I consider to be a most welcome report, and not least of all to know that discussions are still ongoing with the Police and Crime Commissioner, because I believe that a contribution from that organisation would be most welcome, as well as the police are one of the major beneficiaries of the CCTV system. Now, when we've been talking about CCTV in the past, we've been talking about exactly that, the ability to have eyes, as it were, across the town centre, and on that basis, we can liaise with the police and give them all the information that they need to help to prevent or even investigate crime. This is not what is being proposed in this particular report. This goes much, much further, and this can be described as the first steps, if you like, to creating a completely Wi-Fi borough. Now, there are some major pluses with this. Not only does it help to prevent or investigate crime, it is a major resource for our citizens. We can provide, for instance, free Wi-Fi throughout the whole of our town centres, and we would be looking to provide other services as well through street lamps and all sorts of things that can be introduced through the digital connections that we can make as a result of this investment. So I am not only pleased to welcome this report, Leader, I'm excited to see where this could lead us, because I believe that we are in a situation now where we could break forward, as it were, and really connect the borough and work with our partners in order to supply more services to our residents, including, for instance, telecare and work with health as well. This is a really exciting development, and on that basis, Leader, I am happy to move the report.
Thank you for that, Councillor Young. It is indeed an exciting proposal. I can see that Councillor Burnett wants to come in, so I'll bring Councillor Burnett in next, please.
Thank you, Leader. I'm very happy to second the report. I'm particularly excited being a member for the town centre of Bridgend. I know what a difference this CCTV network would make to not only people's perception of safety in the town, but it would work on so many practical levels as well. I'm particularly interested in the prospect of free Wi-Fi coverage. This is something I feel very strongly about, and I do feel that I'm glad that we are taking this approach, because I think Wi-Fi should be a right for everybody, and lots of people are excluded from having digital access, and we've seen that during this lockdown, particularly with our schools and the difficulties that some families have had in accessing digital content. So I would like to see this pushed out. I know there's a lot of debate about whether universal free broadband is something that that should be provided for free, but I would like to point out that 200 years ago, local authorities building roads was thought to be novel. So we are just now building new digital pathways for our residents to benefit from. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Burnett. And as you highlight, the CCTV provision is an essential tool in terms of community safety and crime, not just in Bridgend, but also in Porthcawl and Maesteg and right across the borough. We do have a network that serves the whole of the county borough. Councillor Patel, please.
Thank you, Leader. I support all the comments made by my colleagues that precede me, especially those on equality grounds. I think, Councillor Burnett has highlighted the importance of Wi-Fi access, but I would like to ask if one of the officers would give reassurance around GDPR and civil liberties and that angle, because I think it is concerning to some residents. I think that the report is mainly positive, but I think it wasn't mentioned in the report, so I'd just like to have that on record as well, please.
Thank you for that, Councillor Patel. I think that's an important concern that needs to be addressed, and I'm sure it will be now by Jill.
Yeah, OK, thank you, Leader. I'll bring Martin in, but we at the moment the proposal is not dissimilar from what we currently have, and that's covered quite adequately. Where we move into putting different things on in terms of connection, then obviously we'll go right through the GDPR rules and regulations and make sure that that everybody that needs to be is signed up to it. And in terms of the general population and the residents, you're never going to be absolutely satisfying everybody in terms of cameras. You just have to make sure that people are aware of where cameras are and that they could be captured by them. But I'll hand over to Martin and Phil to come in on some of the specifics.
Thank you, Jill. Martin, please.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Patel. In terms of the CCTV provision, it'll be compliant with the Information Commissioner's Office in terms of CCTV code of practice and data protection legislation. So from that perspective, we'll be covered from that area. And what Jill alluded to, in terms of all the additional benefits, in terms of we work up a business plan for each one of those smart variables, we'll be also doing that equalities piece and our review in terms of GDPR. So each business case aligned to the smart objectives, we'll be able to go through our processes and make sure there's a compliancy around that.
Thanks, Martin. Can I just add, just in terms of the smart piece, could we have a further report when that kind of the plans are developed a bit more? Because I think it's really interesting. And I think there's obviously there's a high level report, but I'd like a little bit more detail when that comes about.
I'll just come in on that, Councillor Patel. The intention is to take this obviously now through to council because it's a capital investment in June. Subsequent to that, obviously, to secure a provider to put the network in, and it's from that point on then that we will be coming back and talking about different options for Cabinet to think about what they would like to build. So it's a sort of sequential series of events rather than a big bang.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks for that, Councillor Patel. And just to reassure members of the public that we are regulated by a comprehensive legislative framework about how we use CCTV, and we have to record that and register any use of that in a very specific way, and we can only use it for certain purposes, and we actually need the permission from only certain designated officers within the organisation before we can undertake some of that activity, and then that has to be reported to Cabinet actually if that activity is exceptional. So there's a very transparent process in place, isn't there, on the use of CCTV that will continue, and that is, I'm sure, a reassurance to most residents, but there will be some who will have some concerns regardless of the legislation and the safeguards that are in place. And actually our record is one where we only use CCTV effectively for crime detection, and we do use it to detect crime, and it is very effective in that regard. Councillor Burnett, you wanted to come back in, and then I'll bring the Deputy Leader in, please.
Sorry, Leader, I forgot to ask a question that I was meaning to. I just wanted to ask a question about adding additional capacity and cameras into the system. There's a lot of residents are concerned, particularly with regards to parking outside schools. Is there a capacity for schools to buy in and other sort of sectors to buy into this system to ensure sort of public safety that way?
Thanks,
Councillor. Also, sorry, and also mobile, you know,
yeah.
There's sort of mobile cameras that could go out to sort of hotspots.
I'm going to ask Phil to come in here because he's done a little bit of work in terms of the schools piece.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Phil. It's a good question from Councillor Burnett. Phil, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. For the purpose of the recording, my name is Phil O'Brien, and I'm the Group Manager for Transformation and Customer Services. In response to your question, Councillor Burnett, by building that CCTV infrastructure and upgrading it, it will give us the ability to be able to build on that infrastructure. So we would be able to, there would be opportunities to look at siting mobile cameras in areas where there could be potential problems, antisocial behaviour, etc., as well as looking at what we could do outside schools across the borough in terms of parking. But again, that would be sort of the second phase as a potential opportunity for us to look at developing the service further. But the infrastructure will allow us immediately really to have the ability to add additional cameras onto that infrastructure to address sort of potential hotspots in short terms as a short-term solution.
That's brilliant. Thank you. I think that would be a huge deterrent outside schools particularly. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Burnett. And Phil, can you confirm that we'll obviously be using if we go ahead with this, the latest technology and a better technology and cameras that potentially will have a wider range and can be deployed more effectively than the existing cameras, which are many of which are very outdated, aren't they?
They are, leader. Yeah, so we'll be looking at sort of moving towards more internet protocol IP cameras and coming away from sort of analog. So it does give us that improved technology to give us sort of a bit more clearer images, better sort of coverage to what we may have got at the moment. So it's a higher resolution and will provide a better service than what the analog cameras give us at the moment.
And that can be critical, can't it, in terms of crime detection and then crime prosecution and ultimately conviction.
Correct. Yeah,
okay.
Correct.
Thank you, Phil. Deputy Leader, please.
Thanks. Thank you, Leader, for opportunity to speak. Yes, I don't think anyone can criticise us for not squeezing the last bit of life out of our CCTV system. I don't know many people watching the same television and using the same camera that they had 20 years ago. Not even my mother does that these days. And the system is obviously very well valued by not only the police but by the public. It reassures the public that and parents of young people, gives them reassurance that when their young family members are out, they are being protected. And obviously much has been made now that this is far more than a CCTV renewal programme. This is about creating a smart county borough, and the possibilities are exciting and endless, I suppose, in that regard. It really puts us at the cutting edge of new developments. It enables us to monitor areas that we haven't been able to before. I mean, the idea that we can tell when the litter bins are filling up, so we can get a team out there to clear them. I mean, that really is going to be a benefit to to local citizens in local areas. So it really is an exciting time for the county borough to be grasping this technology. And I'm very pleased that we are one of the leading authorities in Wales now when we managed to get this system up and running. So yeah, I'm happy to support the report.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, the recommendations have been moved and I think seconded as well. Is everyone in agreement with those recommendations, colleagues?
Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you very much, Martin and Phil. Of course, there will now be a report to full council to seek members' support for the inclusion of this vital infrastructure in the capital programme. But no doubt, Jill, we will also receive a further report in the future about the details and the specification and extent of this scheme, and how we will, I'm sure, continue to work with partners like South Wales Police and indeed other partners through the Public Service Board, like Natural Resources Wales, for example, on the flood monitoring technology that potentially we could use. So very exciting. Thank you both for your work on this. It's much appreciated. Thank you, Phil and Martin, and even Martin's dog was in support of the proposals, I noticed. Okay, so we will move on now to the next report on the agenda, which is a second report from our interim Chief Officer for Finance, Performance and Change, and it is on the proposals for the pest control service across the county borough. Jill, please.
Thank you, Leader. For the purposes of the recording, my name's Jill Lewis, Interim Chief Officer, Finance, Performance and Change. And just to let you know, Leader, I have the same two colleagues with me for the report on pest control, who I'm sure will be happy to take any questions. So the purpose of this report is to provide Cabinet with the background, the current position and the options to determine the preferred way forward for a pest control service following the previous Cabinet report that you received in January, on the 19th of January. So you considered that report in January and asked us to provide you with a further report with some alternative options. And at the same time, you approved the suspension of the CPRs so that we could enter into a short-term contract with our current provider of pest control, who are Rentokil. Now, we've done that. We've gone back to Rentokil and we have extended the contract, but they have been very clear that that's only possible until October of this year, because of the cost of the contract to the provider. It's extremely high because of the free service that Bridgend offer. So whatever we decide to do today needs to be within those timescales. SRS we explored following that Cabinet report further. They provide a public health service to all three councils, which forms part of the shared service. They provide an additional pest control service for the Vale of Glamorgan, which is a charged service. Cardiff they had a service already in place, and so they continue to provide their own service, which is also a charged service. But obviously Bridgend have up until now provided the service through a commercial provider as a free service. There are other organisations clearly within the borough, such as V2C and other RSLs, all of whom have their own pest control contracts for what I would call remedial and proofing type works, but the tenants of those facilities use BCBC's free service as a resident. So in January, you received a report that covered three options: to discontinue the service, which is an option that many councils use, so residents simply buy in the service themselves. It's not a mandatory service, and that was an option that was put forward. To continue with the same free service in the main, but to charge for certain items within that service, and that would be discounted for those on benefits. And the third option was continue with a similar contract to the one we currently have. Cabinet asked us to extend the current contract while those options were explored. And I just wanted to draw attention to a couple of things in the report that will be pertinent to the decision. At 3.6, this was in the previous Cabinet report, and just to remind you that in the budget consultation, shaping Bridgend's future, we sought views on this particular service, And I think it's fair to say that the majority of respondents stated that the service should be charged, and only 16% thought that the service should continue to be free to residents. So there was quite a strong view at the time. That was obviously when we consulted in 2019, and clearly we've had a rather different year since then in terms of the pandemic. So it's not a question that we've asked since. And at 4.3, if I could draw your attention to some of the activity analysis here, which shows the number of requests that we've had for the service, and draw your attention to the high level of abortive calls that you get with the type of service that Bridgends are offering at the moment. Now, if we were to explore a new contract with a new provider, then that's obviously something that will be quite important in terms of looking at any specification. But I think it's fair to say, and we've had indications from the market, that the costs of any new contract will inevitably be higher, and we've highlighted that in the report in front of you today. In looking at the options, we've contacted all the other 21 councils in Wales. That didn't really reveal any new options for us. The vast majority either don't provide a service at all, and residents just simply phone somebody such as Rentokil and get the service themselves, or they provide a service and charge. So it didn't reveal any new options really that we hadn't already considered. So at 4.7, we've set out the additional 2 options that we've put forward in addition to the ones that I've highlighted from the January report. So the 5 potential options are outlined in the table. The first one to discontinue, that I've already referred to. The second one to retender the contract, but to introduce a charge to residents. The third one is a new one, which is continue to provide the service, but to do some charging for treatments outside of the living space, and not charge for those within the living space. And 4 is similar to the one we currently have, which is retender the contract with a new specification. And then 5 would be to bring the service in-house rather than use an external provider. So those are the 5 options before you today. Cabinet are asked to consider the options and to determine their preferred way forward. So I take you to the those recommendations at 9.2, Leader.
Thanks so much for that overview of the report and the potential options. I will bring Councillor Patel in first, please.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Jill and Phil and Martin, for all the work you've done on this report. It's in a slightly better place than it was when it first came. And what I would like to express is that, and I'm sure I speak for all of my Cabinet colleagues, is that we would prefer an option that is free. So I think there's 5 options there, and 2 of them contain charging. And so those are 2 options that we would not like to go forward. Bridgend Cabinet, I'm pretty sure, is in agreement that there should be a free pest control service. So that's our position, and I also think that that consultation was pre-pandemic, and I don't think we can rely on it, because if we look at the figures of referrals pre-pandemic and then during the pandemic, you can see that they've increased, and therefore I think that if we went out today and asked that same question, we would get a very different response. And I know from my own casework and seeing other people's referrals come in and having conversations with colleagues across the chamber, that pest control is something that all members of the authority, all councillors have to deal with. So I think it is a very popular service, and therefore I would like to suggest that we basically continue with a free service and then explore either 3, 4 or 5, which I think which all have potential for keeping and maintaining a free service, and how it's delivered. I think we can have a conversation further outside the meeting then about which way it goes, or if we need to do a consultation. I'm not clear.
If I could just quickly respond,
yes,
Leader, and then bring in Martin and Phil. If we were going to go with option 3, we would need to consult. We would be very tight on timescales. We would have to, we may end up with no service if Rentokil did pull the plug in October, because consultation would be 3 months. So it would be extremely tight, because we've obviously brought in a second report back in May rather than the original timescales in January. So that would be the one option that would need consultation. 4 and 5 don't need consultation. So I'll bring Phil. Did you want to add to that?
Hi again. For the purposes of recording, my name's Phil O'Brien, Group Manager of Transformation and Customer Services. Not really, Jill. I think I just wanted to highlight that option 3 was obviously to continue providing that free pest control within the living space, but then charging for rats outside. So that would need that 12-week public consultation. So the only 2 options really for free service would be that in-house free service, or to continue or to go out to retender the same service we've currently got. We're looking at some sort of elements around the specification and the 3-day.
In that case, I'm happy with proceeding with option 4 and 5.
Okay. Thank you for that, Councillor Patel. And next we've got Councillor.
Thank you, Leader. I absolutely agree with everything that Councillor Patel has said. I have a preference for options 4 and 5, and the reason being is that I don't feel that going out to an external provider, I don't feel they're incentivized enough to actually tackle and solve the problems. I think we're just knocking things on the head, but the actual problems that we've got in the community aren't being tackled, and that requires a joined up approach. It needs to be connected with enforcement, with environmental health at a deeper level, because and I've said this before in meetings, who is responsible for our rat population? If they happen to come into your home, why does that make you responsible for that rat when they are nesting somewhere else? We need to be looking at the breeding habits of the rats in our community, where their food sources are. We need to be tackling things in a more strategic way, and I feel that only ourselves as an authority can do that. We can't eradicate rats. They're natural animals, but they are not appropriate in an urban environment, and at the moment they are causing distress to many residents, and the casework, we've got to have a long-term solution, not just a temporary fix for this. So that's my preference, and I do believe it needs to be free.
Thank you for that, Councillor Burnett. And then we've got the Deputy Leader, please.
Thank you, Leader. And the first point I'd like to make is that rats are not appropriate in any environment, whether rural or urban. So, but if I on the report, 3.6 of the report does sort of mention the consultation we had with the public, and I take Councillor Patel's point. That was some time ago, but when I read that report, it says that 59% believe that the council is not best placed to provide. I'm just wondering whether the council are aware that we had a third-party provider, and maybe that tells me that they're not happy with the service, rather than the council not best placed to provide, because, you know, I think that probably would need to be clarified. Also, that paragraph tells me that less than 1 in 5 would be happy to pay. And I recall vividly when this went to scrutiny, that there was concern about the impact on low-income households, and I believe it was. I know Councillor Burnett just raised that, made that point now, but I believe Councillor Nora Clark made the point. Well, who owns the rat? No one's going to own up to owning the rat, and if we start charging, no one is going to start calling the council to get rid of the rat. So surely the onus does fall on the council to control the rat population within the county borough. So, you know, I think not providing a service is just not an option. And therefore, I'm drawn between option 4 and option 5. We've obviously got a price tag for option 5, and we haven't got the price tag as yet for option 4. So I think the sensible thing is, let's go out to tender. Let's see what the option the tender come back at, and let's provide the best value for money service for the public to control the rat population within Bridgend County Borough. So until we got that information, I don't believe that we can make a decision one way or the other today. But we do need to go out to tender, get a firm cost on providing a service. And for all those points that Councillor Burnett just made, it's not only a drop a block down the drain. That's not what we want. We want a strategic rat control strategy service. And if that is if that's the cost of controlling rats, then that's what we'll have to face as a county borough.
Okay, thanks for that, Deputy Leader. And then we've got, please.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I'm also leaning towards options 4 and 5. I'm not surprised in the least that we are finding more people reporting the fact that rats are present in areas where people are living. With the lockdown, we've had restaurants closed, we've had cafes closed, we've had pubs closed, and the rat population has moved out. It's migrating because they're looking for food. Now, I'm wondering, and I'd be interested to find out whether in a few months, if the lockdown restrictions continue to be more lax, as it were, whether or not they would come back into the town areas looking for restaurants, cafes and pubs and that. So what it's done in actual fact is simply made the public awareness of rats within their own environments. And so I think because this consultation was undertaken before the pandemic hit us, then I think it might be, findings may be a little bit questionable at the moment. And it's for that reason I agree with the Deputy Leader that to discontinue the service is unthinkable. Not at this time anyway, on the basis that people are now more aware that they need this service like this. And I'm happy to go to options 4 and 5. I think they're more sensible. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you for that, Councillor Young. And I think that may be a legacy hand there, Councillor Williams. And yeah, okay. So, Jill, did you want to come back in?
Yeah, just to reiterate, I guess, is that you would expect me as the 1512 to say that we do need to go for the best value option. Just to pick up the point about who owns the rat, that was what was behind option 3, which was that if it was in a house, there would be a free service. If it was in the house, obviously they would want to get the service, wouldn't they? Because they would have it in the living quarters. So that was what was behind option 3, was to distinguish between whose rat it was in some respects. So if I've understood it correctly, if we to secure value for money, we need to go out to tender now with a specification and to see what the market will provide us with in terms of an improved service. We can do that through the specification, and that's the cabinet decision.
Yes, that's my understanding of the contributions from our cabinet members that we've received. Is everyone content with that? Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But more rather than a strategy for eradicating rather than merely controlling the rat population. And I don't know whether that's I don't know how that would be put out in a tender, but we're looking for a strategy where this is tackled across, not just dealing with it in people's homes. This is dealing with rats in public spaces and everywhere else in order. And I think there would be long-term savings in the future if we tackled it properly in the first instance and maintained it then.
But very quickly, there will always be a rat presence, so it's a combination of proactive and reactive service.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
There's 2 elements here. There's the pest control service, and then there is a potential need for a strategy around management of pests across the county borough. And as you've indicated, Councillor Burnett, of course, that is a multi-agency problem, and it's a problem for individuals, communities, and the county borough, isn't it? And actually cannot be addressed by one agency alone. There's obviously an important role for registered social landlords. There's a role for Natural Resources Wales. There's a role for the Health Board as well. So we can look to perhaps taking a paper or taking soundings from the Public Service Board, where those partners are sitting around the table, as a potential route for that. Phil, did you want to come in? I could see that you indicated. Thank you.
Thanks, Leader. Yeah, I just wanted to come back really to Councillor Burnett's concern in that within the current contract, we have built in a clause. So we do maintain very close relationships with shared regulatory services. They are the enforcing authorities. So, so if Rentokil turns up one day and they realises that the source of the infestation is maybe potential rubbish in the neighbouring garden or something, they'd have got those links with shared regulatory services who will go out to site, who will look at getting that rubbish removed, working with the tenant, and addressing those sort of issues as well. And we'll make sure that things like that are factored into the new specification as well.
That's helpful to know, Phil. Jill, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, I think that's really important. So I was going to say something very similar, Phil, which is there are 2 parts to this. The strategy that Councillor Burnett talks about is the SRS part. The pest control is on top of that. So the sewer baiting and all the rest of it is a public health issue. So the strategy is theirs. The pest control is the bit that's on top of that. So just wanted to reassure you that there is already that strategic.
Yeah, I understand that, and I've got experience of it, and I have to say I don't think it moves quick enough, and I don't think it's effective enough, which is why I made the statement in the first place. There's a lot of batting back and forth, and when it comes down to it, we're just tackling rats in properties, and I don't feel that discovering and solving the root cause is effective enough in my experience in my community. So
perhaps we could take that through to the SRS board then.
Yeah, we can certainly do that, can't we? Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, thank you, everyone. So we'll move on to the next report now. And once again, a big thank you to Martin and Phil for covering CCTV and rodent control as well. So we now receive the first report today. Thank you very much, both. Take care. Very welcome to stay if you wish. We'll take the first report today from the Corporate Director for Communities, and it is a report on the Replacement Local Development Plan, the Deposit Plan Public Consultation Document for Bridgend County Borough Council and Bridgend County Borough. I can see that we've been joined by our Group Manager for Planning and Development and our Strategic Planning and Transport Manager, so Jonathan and Richard. A very warm welcome to you both. And I will ask Janine to introduce the report, and I'm sure Richard and Jonathan will come in then as well.
Many thanks, Leader and Cabinet. So good afternoon, everyone. For the purposes of the recording, I'm Janine Nightingale and I'm the Corporate Director for Communities. So I'm delighted today, Leader, to bring this LDP forward to you, this draft LDP. There's been some tremendous effort by the planning staff, and not least Jonathan and Richard, who are with us today. And this plan has been produced with really robust evidence, very, very detailed, and it will guide the development for the borough over the next 12 years when it comes through its consultation and adoption piece. What you have in the Cabinet report is a detailed set of documents, and I'll just explain what you have. No doubt you've been through this. What you have is the report on the plan, which I'm going to take you through some highlights. Appendix 1 is the actual LDP written statement, that's the consultation draft. Appendix 2 are the proposal maps, which show where the proposals are across the borough. And Appendix 3 is the equality impact assessment. So a tremendous amount of detailed information you have with you. So if you allow me, let me just give a little introduction to where we are, and then I'm going to hand over to Jonathan and Richard to take you through some details on that. So the purpose of today, Leader, really is to seek Cabinet's approval to publish this replacement LDP deposit draft. Now, we're proposing to have public consultation in June, the middle of June, about a month away, possibly the 18th of June, for 8 weeks up until mid-August. And that is in accordance with the development agreement that was approved by Council and Welsh Government back in October 2020. Now, what is the background to the plan, really? Well, the deposit plan has been prepared for public consultation in accordance with the Town and Country Planning Regs. And once finalised and adopted, this new plan will replace the existing LDP for the County of Bridgend and will take us up to 2033. But what I must make very clear now is this is a consultation document at this stage. Okay, so all comments received on this will be given due consideration before a finalised version of the plan is developed, and that is the one that's sent to Welsh Government for adoption. And when that plan is received, that finalised version, Welsh Government planning inspectors will hold an examination in public, and then they will look through the document and scrutinise it again. Now, at this stage, Leader, the inspector can add or remove parts of the plan. And then at the end of that, they will report back to us on the plan that they wish for us to adopt. And then it will be for full Council of Bridgend to decide to adopt that LDP or not. So where we are today, Leader, is right at the start of that consultation period. This is the first consultation on the plan. We have 8 weeks. We consider all the comments before we move on. So I'm now going to ask my officers, John Parsons and Richard Mathams, to take us through the contents of that consultation plan for you, and then we're very happy to take questions after that if need be. Thank you, Leader. Over to you guys.
Thank you, Janine. Thank you, Leader and members. For the purpose of the recording, my name is Jonathan Parsons. I'm the Group Manager for Planning and Development Services. Before I hand over to Richard, who will go into some a little bit of an overview of the draft LDP for consultation, I'll just give a little bit of an overview of the LDP itself and what the LDP is. This is for the benefit of those in the meeting that may not be familiar with planning. The LDP is a high-level strategy that must be produced by the council. It is a statutory requirement, and it sort of puts into land use terms, if you like, the sort of overall aims and aspirations of the authority. In sort of national terms, the LDP's development plans are seen as a way of bringing forward well-being aspirations of Welsh Government and also in a significant contribution to meeting the carbon reduction targets nationally and locally. So it's quite a significant piece of work. It's a large piece of work, but it is quite essential. If we didn't have a development plan, then we wouldn't have planned developments. We'd be open to speculative developments and planning by appeal, which is not particularly good for us, as we couldn't plan for our future communities. So I think it's important that we provide our citizens and our stakeholders and the people that we work with, give them the necessary consultation then on what is this very high level and important piece of work. So I'll hand you over to Richard, who will touch on some of the highlights then of the proposed plan and the next steps going forward. So thank you.
Afternoon.
Thank you, Johnson. Over to you, Richard.
Afternoon, members. Thank you, Councillor David. For the purpose of the recording, my name is Richard Mathams and I am the Strategic Planning and Transportation Manager. So amongst other things, the replacement LDP will deliver sustainable and transit-orientated development and seek to maximise wellbeing and create sustainable places through placemaking. It will deliver new green infrastructure and protect our existing parks and deliver new education infrastructure. It will provide new, much needed road and active travel infrastructure and help facilitate 7,500 new jobs over the next 15 years by allocating and protecting 70 hectares of employment land. It will help our town and service centres recover after the COVID pandemic. We have to acknowledge that people are living longer and also Bridgend's population is growing, coupled with the fact that Bridgend is a popular place to live. We need new homes to ensure that our young members of the community are able to stay living in Bridgend and raise their children in decent, fit-for-purpose homes. The LDP will seek to deliver zero carbon homes, supporting the council's decarbonisation strategy by providing a land use framework to help tackle the climate change emergency and protect our environment. Some critical points here that John touched on earlier: the material weight attached to the LDP, the existing LDP and its evidence base, will progressively diminish from 2021, so from September, thereby placing the council in a tenuous position and open to challenge from the development industry. It's therefore imperative that the local planning authority continues to progress with the statutory review of its LDP. And again, as John mentioned earlier, fundamentally, the replacement LDP will avoid planning by appeal and ad hoc development coming forward outside the development plan system. So Janine again touched upon the stage we're at the moment, which is the deposit stage of the process. And there's a flow diagram in members' report. So in terms of the structure of the document, as detailed in the report before members this afternoon, Chapter 1 sets out the background and purpose of the document. Chapter 2 sets out the spatial and strategic context. Chapter 3 sets out the issues and drivers. And then we get to the main heart of the document, which is Chapter 4, the strategic framework. And this sets out the overarching vision to ultimately define what the LDP is working towards. The vision will be delivered through 4 strategic objectives, which are underpinned by 35 specific objectives. We won't go through all of them now, but are detailed in the document. That chapter also sets out the growth and spatial strategy, which is grounded in placemaking principles, and development will ultimately be directed towards areas that are conducive to sustainable placemaking, that facilitate a balance of environmentally friendly, economically vibrant and socially inclusive characteristics. Specifically, we'll be looking to meet the needs of all members of the community, promote balanced economic growth that provides access to employment opportunities, provide for active travel and integrated green infrastructure networks, appropriate infrastructure and services, provide a range of high quality private and affordable housing. So also that chapter details a number of draft strategic allocations where growth will be focused. Chapter 5, implementation and delivery. This chapter sets out the strategic and development management policies, which are derived from the strategic framework and form the basis to implement and deliver the vision and strategic objectives. As with all components of the LDP, all strategic policies are complementary in terms of supporting the achievement of the national wellbeing goals, local wellbeing objectives and sustainable development. Chapter 6 contains the monitoring framework, which sets out how the plan's strategy, objectives, policies and proposals will be monitored. As Janine touched upon earlier, Cabinet will note there are a large number of supporting technical documents that have been produced to inform the replacement LDP, and these are listed in Table 1 along with their role and purpose. So from my perspective, some critical points for noting. The document before Cabinet today is for consultation purposes only, to seek the views of our communities and key stakeholders. It's not the final LDP. A full consultation report will be presented to Council after the 8-week consultation, detailing the volume and content of comments received. Cabinet should expect the plan to evolve and change as a result of feedback from our key stakeholders. Therefore, amendments to the deposit draft can be made, including final site selection, after the public consultation. This is called post-deposit modifications and will also be subject to public consultation. The final version of the LDP will need to be reported to Council for sign-off prior to a formal independent examination in public with the planning inspector appointed by Welsh Government. Therefore, the recommendation as detailed in the report before members today is to note and approve the supporting evidence-based documents described in the table paragraph 4.27, approve the deposit draft for public consultation in June for a period of 8 weeks in accordance with the approved delivery agreement, and authorise the corporate director and group manager for planning and development service to make any final amendments on refinements prior to consultation. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you for that comprehensive introduction, Richard. I can see that Councillor Smith wants to come in. I'll bring Councillor Smith in first, then Councillor Burnett. I think Councillor Burnett raised her hand first, so as a gentleman, I'd like to let her go first, if that's okay, Leader. Of course, yeah. It's just Councillor Smith appeared at the top of my list, so apologies about that. I'll bring you in first, then Councillor Burnett.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, and I have sat on developmental control until taking on this cabinet position, and was, you know, I haven't been there all the way along the journey, but I can really see how much work has gone into this, and I think it's quite amazing, to be honest. It's since the beginning, when you came to planning committee saying that we were about to take this on. There are, I know the emphasis is on building new communities and addressing the needs for more houses within our communities, and I'm fully supportive of that. I am aware that there are some schemes in place that will be controversial to our residents, and want to stress again that this is just a consultation phase and that we are not predetermined in anything at all. But I also want to sort of reassure that as a council, we are investing in the communities that we already have, as well as building new ones, and I would like to see how we are working on our housing needs in a more holistic way through the council. So investing in the towns and settlements that we have, and getting maximum capacity out of the housing stock that we have. So addressing empty properties, and also looking at our changing demographics within our towns as well. We've got a lot of single people living in large family houses. We've got, if we addressed supported living and extra care, we could free up family homes. And I would like to sort of encourage people to take advantage of schemes such as the Rent a Room scheme, which could help address our housing needs without having to build new houses. So there are different strategies that we can take, and I think we need to be looking at it holistically. But I appreciate what this document is about, and thank you for all the work. So I'm happy to move the report.
Thank you for that, Councillor Burnett. And Councillor Smith is next, please.
Thank you, Leader. I'll just lower my hand. Thank you. So for the benefit of the recording, I'm Councillor Charles Smith. I'm the Cabinet Member for Education and Regeneration. And again, I'd like to thank Jonathan and Richard and the whole team there in planning for the way they've gone about this task. Like the Leader, I'm very, very keen on involving town and community councils, and I know they did the rounds of community councils at a very early stage. I've forgotten how long ago it was, but you did come to Lalison Community Council with your maps and so on, and we had very early consultations with you about that, and I was very pleased with that. And I'm also very happy with the way that Janine, Jonathan and Richard have presented this report today as a consultation. I've already seen misinformation, false news and misleading headlines in the social media saying that the draft before us today is the final draft. I've also seen ill-informed comments to say it's all a done deal. Agenda's got this plan to scatter housing all over the county borough. All that is wrong. This is consultation. As Jonathan said, this is a statutory duty. Every council is supposed to be doing it. Some councils, I'm aware, try and fail. They are then open to the open market, to the free market, as Jonathan has indicated. So that means that developments come in a sort of a random form and an uncontrolled and an unmanageable form, and it leads to it can lead to very undesirable development. We all know that the housing market is broken, and it's to the shame of successive governments of different political colours that broken housing market hasn't been mended. There's too much housing of the wrong type and not enough housing of the right type. There's unaffordable housing. There are second homes keeping people out of the places where they want to live. So there's a whole lot wrong with the housing market. and there's an unequal balance between councils and private sector developers. So this is where an LDP is important, because a robust LDP can support developers who put forward desirable proposals, and it can also protect residents who want protection against undesirable proposals. So as a cabinet member, I second Councillor Burnett. I support the recommendations in the report that we move to consultation on these candidate sites. But I think there are three key messages to tell the public, and I hope that people who are on social media or reporting in the mainstream media will carry these messages in their writings, which is that these candidate sites are candidates. Candidate means candidate. We know as politicians that being a candidate is one thing, getting elected is another. And putting forward a candidate site and having that candidate site built on and developed are two different things. We're open to consultation, and I think by now we've got a track record in Bridgend which shows that consultation means consultation. We consult, we listen, and we act on what we've listened to. So if people feel strongly for or against aspects of this draft plan, please engage with the consultation and send in your comments to the council. They will be considered on planning grounds and taken account of. If I could speak very briefly as a ward member, I'm a member for a ward in the west of Bridgend in the community of Lalliston. I will be taking part as a ward member and as a private citizen in the consultation. I will be supporting some of the candidate sites, and I will be representing the opinions of my residents, and I will be making strong representations on one or two of these sites, and these strong representations will be presented on planning grounds. On the evidence I've seen so far, I don't think that all these candidate sites are worthy of going forward, but it's up to the public to put in the evidence on planning grounds in the letter and the spirit of the legislation, showing respect to the would-be developers and respect to the planning system, and using the planning system to say what they need to say about these candidate sites. And I think our planning system in Bridgend is strong enough and robust enough to support desirable development and also to protect things that matter, things like rights of way, open spaces, distinct communities, and to stop undesirable development. So I'm sure that some of these candidate sites will survive the process, and it could well be that some won't, but it's up to people to put in the evidence so that those judgments can be made. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I'll bring Councillor Young in next, please.
Thanks, Leader. Yeah, firstly, can I just look at the amount of work that's gone into this document, and can I pay tribute to the work that Richard has made, our lead officer on this, Richard Mathens, and of course pay tribute to Jonathan as well. This is a phenomenal amount of work, and I really do pay tribute to your dedication in this, and I'd like to thank you from all the cabinet members for the diligence with which you have produced this document. This document, in its final form, after it's been to consultation, will act as the protection for the county borough. It will inevitably protect our environment, our urban areas, and protect residents as well from indiscriminate planning or development, should I say. And that is a reason why this is so important. This, in its final form, will become our Bible. And I cannot overstate its importance in planning terms. I'm particularly pleased to see our green agenda now has prominence within the local development plan, and I think the section on the renewable and carbon energy development is excellent. That addresses our Broadband 2030 policy, which is all about green energy, green spaces, active travel, and with that, I think we'll have added, protection in there, because in future with planning decisions, Welsh Government are going to measure our planning decisions against the possibility of increasing that type of development, our green agenda. So I'm very pleased to see that that is given precedent in this document. The consultation is a drawn-out process, as I'm sure Richard will be able to explain to us, and this document is not going to remain exactly as you see it today. Although I am firmly convinced, as Councillor Smith has already outlined, the document will set all sorts of hairs running. I think it will set the hairs running for the wrong reasons, because those people that will become the hairs will have their own agendas, which has got nothing to do with the protection of the Bridgend County Borough Council. This document is the protection for Bridgend County Borough, and I don't want anybody to be under any illusion about that. And I will echo Councillor Smith's plea for the people of Bridgend to get involved and engage with the process of consultation. It is within their interests. And I feel strongly that we will produce a robust document that, when scrutinised by Welsh Government, they will see that it is a robust document and will allow it to go forward in its final form. So once again, thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Richard, especially. And I'm happy to support the consultation. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you for that, Councillor Young. And I'd also echo the thanks of colleagues to Jonathan and Richard, but also recognise, because whilst it's a very small team, it's not a one-man band, and I'm sure Richard would want to recognise the dedicated work of Adam, Louis and Brett, I think but it's a very small team, isn't it? But they work exceptionally hard, and it's been a mammoth undertaking so far, and there's a lot more work to do. And my point today would be that we're still at the start of a journey, effectively. So we will have a very comprehensive public consultation. More details about that will be made available in June, about how people can engage in that, and we will want as many people as possible to take part in that consultation, because the local development plan affects everyone. Wherever you live in the county borough, you will be affected by the local development plan, because it is about jobs. It is about how we ensure there are 7,500 new jobs across the county borough on employment sites, industrial sites. It is about our plans for new primary schools across the borough. It is about our plans for green energy across the borough. It is about, of course, plans for new homes. And we do need more new homes, because people are living longer and we have a growing population in the county borough of Bridgend. And unless we see more houses being built, we will see more homelessness. And we already experience a high level of homelessness in the county borough, because we simply do not have enough homes, and we do not have enough affordable and social homes, and that is very much at the heart of this initial set of plans and strategic sites that have been identified. think it's also important to emphasise that we will, of course, once the consultation has been completed, the consultation responses will be very carefully considered, and we will revisit the plans, and no doubt there will be changes to those plans following the consultation. That has always happened when we've developed plans, whether they were unitary plans or strategic or local plans in the past here and elsewhere. But there will be a stage, and perhaps Richard could remind colleagues and explain more to colleagues about this and members of the public. There will be a stage where it will go to an inspector. An inspector will make a judgment following an inquiry about our LDP. And if our plan is not robust enough, it is not based on evidence and based on facts and the careful plans and forecasts of growth of the county borough, then the inspector will simply reject our plans, and potentially a different set of plans will be progressed for the county borough. And once that has been has been considered by the inspector, it also needs to come back to full council. It'll be for full council to make a decision about the LDP, and if full council does not support some sites, then of course it is for members to propose alternative sites, for example, as a way of ensuring the LDP is a strategy that overall is a sustainable strategy and a robust strategy that can be adopted by the authority. And we will have to go to Welsh Government as well with our plans, won't we, Richard? And perhaps you could also explain that to any guests and members of the public that are here today. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Leader. I think you've actually explained that exceptionally well there. The only difference that I would add is that when we submit the plan to Welsh Government, as officers, as members, as communities, we want that to be the final plan. But you are quite correct in that if proposals or if sites are proposed in that plan that aren't supported by robust and credible evidence, then the inspector can add sites in or take sites out. So it's imperative that the plan that goes forward eventually is based on credible, robust evidence. And then, as you said, it will come back once it's been through a very, very detailed, lengthy public examination. It will be presented back to members to formally adopt. But by that time, you would hope that there's agreement through members and officers that this is the right plan for Bridgend.
Okay, thank you for that, Richard. I'll bring the Deputy Leader in next, please. Deputy Leader.
Yeah, thank you, Leader, and thank you, Richard, for presenting the plan. There's clearly a huge amount of work have gone into this, and it's a very good document. It's based on a lot of evidence, and it meets all the legislative requirements. But I just want to sort of tease out from you, if I may, now what weight public opinion will carry on this plan, because at the end of the day, this is going out now for public consultation, and we depend on public opinion, I suppose, to make sure that we are doing the right thing. We want to. It's not convinced, because this is not a done deal. This is going out to public consultation. So I know Councillor Smith mentioned that we would be considering valid planning objections, which is fine. But what weight would public opinion carry in any representation, because I'm sure that there will be the odd element in this plan that will not meet with the approval of maybe one or two, maybe even more than that, you know, people. So I just want to understand really where public opinion, where the role of public opinion sort of falls in this process.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Leader. So public consultation is hugely important to the process. That's why we go through so many stages. It's not so much the volume of for example, objections. We really stress members of the public to focus on what we call material planning considerations. So planning law doesn't allow us to take into consideration what we call NIMBYism, people that just don't want development in their area. But that's why we urge members of the public to focus on material planning grounds. So, for example, traffic, congestion, location of development, impact that a new development might have on their property in terms of overlooking, loss of countryside, loss of rights of way. So they are the types of issues that we would expect members of the public to focus on. And if comments are based on what we call material planning grounds, then they carry a lot of weight. And as an officer, after this consultation, I want to be spending months, you know, assessing, you know, hopefully a high level of comments, good and bad, on the plan proposal. So yes, they do carry weight, Deputy Chair, but it's critically important that it focuses on material planning considerations, and officers would be able to guide members of the public as to what are appropriate material planning considerations if they want any advice.
Lovely, thank you for that response. That's very pleasing.
Yeah, and that's a point that needs to be emphasised. There is an opportunity to help shape this LDP, and we want everyone who's got an interest to take part in this consultation process once the details are launched. And we will also ensure that we reach out to those groups who don't always participate as much as we would like in consultation processes. So young people and children who arguably have the biggest interest in this LDP, because it is about ensuring that we are planning for the future and not reacting to issues, but planning for them, and planning for the long term, not just the short term. Jonathan, you wanted to come in, please.
Yeah, thank you. I think you've knocked the nail on the head there quite succinctly. This is a forward plan, and we need to embrace all of the communities. And I think the important thing is consultation. It's getting the views in. As Richard says, that the main emphasis is on material planning grounds, and we have to accept that some of the sites are going to be particularly more popular than others. But it's material planning grounds is important. But I think it's equally important to emphasise that now is the time to engage with the process, because once the plan is adopted and it's printed up and it's there, it's very difficult to do anything about that. So once the planning applications come in for the sites after post adoption, then to say that that's an unsuitable site is at that point it's no good to the people living there. It's got to be done now. We've got to have that, got to take part in that process now. So that's quite critical. And I think what we, as a team, we are going to look to do is to reach out to the community and to publicise this as much as we can. And we have the advantage now of having this is probably the first truly digital planning process, development plan process we're going to go through. The last plan in the 2013 was it wasn't quite digital medium wasn't quite fully developed then, but this is going to be more about that. But we've also got to be mindful that not everybody has access to that technology. We still have to rely on traditional methods of getting that message across as well. So, but I think we are probably in this day and age, I think word spreads faster via digital means than it did previously, and I think we are going to probably in this plan consultation is going to be perhaps a little bit more engaging than previous ones. But thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Jonathan. And can you confirm, because it is important, that on any major developments, and indeed even for relatively small scale developments, there will be a minimum requirement for social and affordable housing. The reason why I say that, and I don't know if we've got the figures to hand about the amount of affordable and social housing that potentially will be built, is because last year 1,500 people made homelessness presentations to Bridgend County Borough Council, and 1,000 people we had to provide with temporary accommodation because they were homeless. They did not have a roof over their head, and we had to accommodate them in hostels, sometimes even in hotels, because there is nowhere for them to live in the county borough. And that is the extent of the challenge that we are facing. And one of the requirements of this plan is that any major housing development has a minimum requirement for social and affordable housing. So can you just confirm that that is part of the process for this, and how that has been calculated, and the proposals for that in the LDP?
Yes, thank you. Yes, that will be a requirement. There will be policy on affordable housing as there is in the current plan. So it is a key part of the policy is provision of affordable housing. No, whether we like it or not, then we can't have affordable housing without housing. So we've got to have big housing developments, because an element of that comes forward as affordable, whether that's provision within the site itself, or whether that's off-site contributions, or it's contributions that go to registered social landlords for other developments. But that is the reality of the situation. We also have the opportunity to develop our own supplementary planning guidance on affordable housing, and that will be key as well to come out of the LDP. The LDP, I believe, we are looking to produce or to develop a number of houses, and we're looking at around about 2,000 of those houses that be affordable. So it is a critical part of our policy. Unfortunately, without an LDP, it will be very, very difficult for us to secure that affordable housing, because all our Section 106 contributions are generally predicated as us having an up-to-date development plan and having up-to-date policies. So if we haven't got that up-to-date plan and those up-to-date policies, then our ability to negotiate affordable housing as part of development is diminished. So it's important that we have these this plan to come forward. And it's not just affordable housing, it's education, open space. These are key contributions that we receive. So we have to have the plan in place and the supplementary planning guidance in order to actually seek those contributions from the developers, because some developers will, other developers may not be that keen to, and they'll use it as a way of a lack of a plan as a way of avoiding certain contributions.
Thank you for that, Jonathan. And of course, the details of that and the balance between affordable and social housing, and that's been raised with me already, will be something that we will want to focus on as part of the LDP process. And it's always difficult getting that balance right, but we want to hear what the public and members will say about that. Richard, I can see that you've indicated. You're on mute. Sorry, Richard. Sorry.
Sorry, Leader. Just to build on what John has just said, the final selection of sites that we go forward with the final LDP, will undertake rigorous viability testing to make sure those sites can deliver the level of affordable housing we need, because it always feels very uncomfortable when we get to Development Control Committee and then suddenly the level of affordable housing has gone from 30% down to 0. And we want to avoid that this time around. So, rigorous viability testing will be done.
Thank you. That's very helpful and reassuring to hear. Councillor Patel, would you like to come in, please?
Yeah, I just have a plea that we don't use affordable housing and social housing interchangeably, because I think they are two different types of housing, and I know that I think most members support the idea of additional social housing, and I don't want that to be forgotten when we talk about affordable housing. So I just want to make that clear. And then also in terms of the consultation, I'm pleased that we're going out to the public, and I hope that the consultation is in accessible form, and so that an easy read version. Obviously, I presume there's going to be a Welsh version. I think that's that's definitely going to happen. But just wanted to make sure that the accessible forms are there as well, so that all residents of the community can get involved.
And accessible to members as well, Councillor. Yeah, Richard, please.
Thank you, Lee. Just very quickly, yes, we've worked with the engagement team to develop a non-technical summary of the document, because it can be quite techie sometimes. In terms of the accessibility standards, we've tried to make it accessible as a problem, but we have to accept that some of the table formats that are in the LDP, we have to set them out that way. That's how Welsh Government tell us to do it. So perhaps if we get negative feedback on the way that is presented, we can feed that back to Welsh Government to help sort of improve the accessibility of local development plans in the future.
Thank you for that, Richard, and that's a point that was well made by Councillor Patel, and I was perhaps not making very well around that balance around social and affordable. There's a role for both, but it's crucial that that we see that significant expansion in social housing as well. But like I say, there's a role for both, and I think that's where the viability assessment comes in, doesn't it, Richard, in assessing that. The only other point I would make, and I am going to make it because I think this is such an important strategy for us, and it's crucial that that certainly members of the public understand the process around it. Can you reassure members that transport infrastructure is also at the heart of the LDP and developing that, because particularly when we have major house building or major employment development, then there will need to be transport infrastructure that serves that community, but also, or there's new communities and there's new sites, but also that will have an impact on nearby existing settlements, and some of that transport infrastructure is indeed the condition on which some of that development can take place. So I'm thinking of the proposals around the new bridge over the railway at Pencoed, which will not only provide benefit to the whole of the community of Pencoed, potentially through active travel and removing a level crossing and easing congestion, but also potentially will unlock further development. Transport is part of the plans, and perhaps you could explain that, and also because we will see the public saying, what about, as well as school places and education, and I can see in the plans that's very well laid out about the proposals for new schools, Welsh medium and English medium, but people will ask about the provision of primary health care. Will there be a GP, for example? Will there be enhanced GP provision? So can you explain, Richard, about the work that we have done and the work that we will do with colleagues in the health board, because we will need to ensure that if there is that growth in our communities, that there's a commensurate growth in the primary health care provision across the borough.
Okay.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you, Leader. So first of all, in terms of larger transport proposals, I would ask members to refer to policy PLA 8, so PLA 8, and that details all of the larger transport schemes that the plan is looking to deliver over its lifespan. In terms of road infrastructure and the impact that has on our local communities, there's a supporting document that's being prepared called the Strategic Transport Assessment. And in short, what that does is it looks at and assesses the impact that these various strategic site options would have on the surrounding community and the road network. And it then suggests what mitigation measures would be required to ensure that traffic can flow freely and not cause congestion. That is a massive piece of work that is still ongoing, that was delayed because of COVID. But by the time that's finalised and the sites are finalised, we should have a clear list of mitigation measures that are required to make those developments acceptable. And it might be the case that some sites have to fall out because they can't simply deliver those mitigation measures. And again, the sites of viability appraised to ensure that they can afford that infrastructure. In terms of new education facilities, the thrust of the plan is to promote larger strategic scale growth. And the reason why we're doing that is because we know there is pressure on existing education facilities. So we're trying to advocate larger sites that are self-contained, that can provide their own supporting primary school and Section 106 contributions for secondary education provision. And again, those key strategic site options will be appraised to make sure they can afford to deliver it. Because again, as a council, what we don't want is a new housing development that doesn't deliver the infrastructure. We don't want to go there. And in terms of health facilities, we have engaged with the local health board from the very start of the process to ensure that the level of growth that's being proposed, there's adequate medical facilities. Now, we have comments back from the local health board about the number of facilities being provided or expansion of existing facilities, but that's an additional area of work that officers want to focus on. In effect, we want to go back to them and see if we can improve the level of infrastructure that they are planning to deliver. But ultimately, we are guided by the health board. But again, when we get more news or information on that, that will be reported back to members.
Very much welcome that. Thank you, Richard. Okay, the recommendations have been moved and seconded. Is everyone in agreement with those recommendations, please?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, thank you once again to Janine, Richard, and to Jonathan for that. And no doubt this is something that we will, of course, be returning to in future meetings of both Cabinet, Full Council, and of the Development Control Committee as well. We'll now receive the second report, the Corporate Directive for Communities, and that is on the use of planning performance agreements and other cost recovery measures for the determination of planning applications. So Janine, over to you, please. Thank you.
Yeah, many thanks, Leader. Yeah, this is a really interesting report, and it's been some time in the development. We've been discussing it with Cabinet, so I'm really pleased to bring this forward today, and you'll see why from all of the work we've done on the development plan, the local development plan. It will generate planning applications as we get development and we in our borough over the next 10 years. So this report is all about development control and looking at planning applications. So the purpose of the report, Leader, is to seek Cabinet's authorisation to use planning performance agreements, or PPAs, with developers as part of a system of cost recovery and dealing with mainly major development proposals in the borough, and to introduce additional cost recovery measures. Now, the use of planning performance agreements is widely used in other local authorities across the region and in Wales and across the UK, in fact, and is accepted by developers and house builders alike. It's mainly for large developments, as I've said, and it's a tool that we see regularly. So as you've read the report, no doubt, Leader and Cabinet, I'm going to ask John Parsons to just point out the most pertinent points within the report for you, and then he will direct you to the 3 recommendations that are in section 9 of the report. Okay, thank you, Leader.
Okay, thank you very much, John.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Thank you, Janine. Purposes of the recording, I'm Jonathan Parsons, Group Manager for Planning and Development Services. Yeah, members will have had the opportunity to look at the report and the contents, and this provides a background to planning performance agreements, what they are and what we hope to achieve. The report also contains a recommendation to introduce additional paid-for services within the planning's pre-application advice service, and this is something to bring us up to date with other local authorities and with current planning thinking across the region and Wales. Well, put simply, what is a planning performance agreement? Well, it is what it says on the tin, if you like. It's an agreement between the local planning authority and the developer or potential developer, and it's an efficiency tool to effectively determine a planning application. This is, as Janine has said, is primarily focused towards major developments, larger scale developments, strategic developments, but the principles could be used elsewhere in the planning process. So there's a number of uses for it. Now, why do we need planning performance agreements? Well, it's probably, there are a number of reasons for that. We could have a very complex planning application which involves something that we would normally over and above what we would expect our own service to provide. So we may need specialist advice, and we need to maybe recover the cost of providing that advice that we can't actually take from the planning application fee itself. So one of the key characteristics of a planning performance agreement is that there could be a financial contribution involved with that, and the evidence to date would suggest that there is a willingness on the behalf of developers that they are willing to enter into a planning performance agreement and are happy to fund certain resources to ensure that development goes ahead effectively. Now, I'll give you an example. We've recently approved planning permission for massive large-scale development at the Wepper paper mills in Maesteg, and that took a lot of resource on our part. There were two officers that were more or less in full-time on that particular project, and the reason that was so important to us is because we knew the economic value of that project, so we had to put more effort into getting that development through within the certain timescales, because it was a large-scale project that was dependent on funding from a corporate HQ. So that would be one area where we would have quite easily have used a PPA to ensure that we could engage the appropriate experts to assist us in getting that development through. As Janine has also mentioned, we've now got a development plan, as the previous item would suggest. We've now got a development plan that's to be renewed. We're going to have consultation on that. And once that plan is eventually adopted, then the expectation is that we're going to see planning applications coming in for those strategic sites. And we want to be able to manage those strategic developments. We want to manage them for the benefit of our communities, create new communities, and we want to be able to do this as effectively as possible. So now is the right time to really be looking at this particular tool as a way of assisting us in delivering those strategic sites. It's not the answer to everything. That there are obviously other matters that we have to deal with as day-to-day determination of planning applications, but this is something that gives us a little bit more power to our elbow then in getting developments through. I need to stress, however, that even though we may enter a planning performance agreement, we may get a financial contribution. This is not to be seen as a way of buying a planning consent, and that's certainly not the case. This is an efficiency tool that allows us to actually draw in the necessary resource to effectively determine a planning application. And the added economic benefits of those developments that we need to realise that we need to get it done. So that's where we are with planning performance agreements. There are a number of authorities already operating. They've been operating for some years. Our neighbouring authorities, for example, they've been using these for quite some time, and other authorities in Wales and across the UK. I would also sort of point out as well that this could be useful to us in dealing with developments of national significance, or DNS developments. Now, these are infrastructure proposals, renewable energy projects such as wind farms, big solar developments. Now, these, under the new planning regulations, these are now determined by the Welsh ministers. The local authorities is a consultee rather than a determining authority for these developments, and as a consequence, there is no planning fee as such. There's no significant planning fee attached to this. That goes to Welsh Government. So in order for us to provide a robust response to these development proposals that are coming through, and there is one wind farm development that's waiting to go through the DNS process now, we need to be able to have the ability to enter a planning performance agreement with those developers to ensure that we can get the necessary resource to assist us in providing a robust response to those particular applications. So it's a quite a useful tool all round. Now, it's there's nothing in planning legislation that refers to planning performance agreements, but there is other legislation that covers it, and that is all highlighted in the report. In terms of our paid for pre-application service, we are looking for an increase in the fees, and then this is there to reflect the uplift in planning fees nationally as well. We haven't changed our pre-app fees since we rebooted the system a number of years ago, and we have added a few additional services in there that just to respond to the public demand. So that in a nutshell, that's it. The recommendations are laid out in the report, and they refer to the Cabinet approving the use of planning performance agreements. Also looking at the uplift in the pre-application advice service and the additional paid for services that are highlighted in the report. And lastly, is to allow the Corporate Director of Communities to be able to have delegated authority to enter into a planning performance agreement as necessary. I'm quite happy to take any questions on that if anybody wishes to ask. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that comprehensive overview of the proposals. Councillor Young, please.
Thanks, Leader. Yeah, these have been in existence now for a number of years, to be honest with you, and it's to offset the double hit that we would take. Since you don't need me to remind you that since 2010, for instance, we've been taking cut after cut after cut, which has reduced the resilience of our planning department, to be perfectly honest with you. But not only has it reduced the resilience of the planning department, because of the cuts that we're taking, we then had to take on added costs, as it were, because they were costs for the services that we were providing. This is simply recovering those costs, but I don't think they're actually going to recover all the costs, will they, Jonathan? I think it's a contribution more than anything. But I have to say that it'll stop that double hit. Now, they have been in existence for a number of years, and I think that looking at the scale of charges that we're looking at, to be perfectly honest with you, contained in this report, I don't think that they are excessive. And I'm quite happy on that basis to move the report, Leader.
Thank you for that, Councillor Young. Do I have a seconder to that, please?
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Burnett. Councillor Patel, please.
Thank you, Leader. I just have a point of clarification around the impact to smaller developers. I know, Janine, you mentioned that this is to basically reflect the work that's required with large developments. Just wanted to confirm what the position is with you know, smaller house developers. You know, my ward is mainly, you know, there is no large scale developer willing to come and do anything up in the Ogmore Valley. It is more about local builders and infill plots, just because of the topography. So just wondered what the impact would be on smaller builders, please. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Patel.
Yeah,
John.
Thanks, Councillor. That's a valid point. We wouldn't anticipate a small-scale builder would be interested in entering a planning performance agreement, but there's nothing to stop them doing that. I think it's probably more about the complexity of the planning issues that may require additional resource. I think that's where we would probably. This sort of process would be beneficial, but I think individual infill plots and any development up to 10 houses, it's unlikely that there would be a need to do that. But we never know. I mean, the principle will apply across the board, and I think we'd have to take each case on its merit. And we would only be really looking to recover any cost that we would incur outside of the normal planning application fee. So it's not intended to be a bar to development. It's not intended to put people off. It's intended to actually facilitate the developments going forward and to make the determination more efficient. And similarly with our paid for pre-application advice service, that we were the first authority in Wales to actually introduce a paid for pre-application advice service. I have to admit that was back in 2010 or 11. I was sceptical at first, and I thought, no, this is against my sort of public principle as a local authority town planner. We should be providing this free at the point of service, etc. But from that point on, we suddenly realised that there is a willingness to on the behalf of the development industry to engage with us, and they would rather have some bespoke advice and willing to pay a little bit extra to achieve that advice. So we developed that system and we overhauled it to make it more effective and more focused and bespoke to those developments concerned. So you only pay for the advice that you're actually going to get. And also during that course of the time, then, as Councillor Young has mentioned, that the resourcing of local authorities has subdued, and we've had to find other ways of providing that advice. but we don't see it as a profit money making venture. This is purely just to recover what we have lost, or what we need to use. And also with the advice service, we do have discretion that we can waive the fee if necessary. So for example, if there's a community group comes forward in a deprived area, or an area that would benefit from development, and if this is part of a place planning exercise, for example, or a community project, then we don't necessarily have to charge a fee for pre-application advice. We wouldn't have to enter a PPA or seek additional resources if it was considered necessary, if it was considered that the development could would be in the interest of everybody, that we want to promote that development. So there is an element of discretion there. But from my sort of experience, there is a willingness for developers for the major schemes, and we're talking multi-million-pound investments, that a couple of £1,000 extra on top of the planning fee is nothing compared to the overall investment they're bringing into that into the area, and they're more than willing to engage with us and to fund those additional resources needed to get the right decision for the right development. So yeah, I don't see it as a part of it. I see it as more as a facilitation. Thanks.
Thank you, Jonathan. I think that's reassuring, and I'm pleased that conversations have already taken place with those that will be potentially impacted by this charge, and they're all positive. So thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor and Jonathan. And just to confirm that these are voluntary arrangements, aren't they, Jonathan? They don't have to be undertaken. I think that's a key feature of these arrangements, but they're there if people want a potentially quicker service, or they want a different type of service. But the outcome in terms of the application will still be the same, won't it, in terms of the decisions made. Okay. Is the recommendations been moved and seconded? Is everyone in agreement?
Yep, agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay. Thank you, colleagues. So the next item on the agenda, and thank you once again to Jonathan and Richard. Next item on the agenda is a report, the third report to the community's corporate director, and it is on the former Uweni Road industrial site in Maesteg, and the proposals for funding from the Cardiff Capital Region City deal. Janine, please.
Oh, thank you very much, Leader. Well, I'm delighted to bring this report forward today. Long overdue, the regeneration of this vacant site in Maesteg. I can remember when I lived back then, the day when it was Silent Channel and Revlon. I remember this site really well, hustle and bustle, but it's been vacant for some time now. So it's great to be able to come forward with this report today. So the purpose of the report, Leader, is to update Cabinet on progress made in bringing forward a mixed-use regeneration of this former Uweni Road industrial estate in Maesteg, and it's to seek approval to proceed to the next stage of grant funding, the due diligence part, in order to secure the Cardiff Capital Region funding for both infrastructure and remediation work on this site. The report will also provide an update on the ongoing relationship with Pontardawe Coal and Metals Company Limited, and the joint aim of the parties to facilitate the remediation, marketing and sale of the land at Uweni Road. So I won't go through the report in detail, Leader, as I know that you have all read it, but I would like to draw your attention to some points, if I may. Within section 3 of the report, it talks about the background. So very briefly, just to give a bit of background to the the accoutrements of the site. The vacant site on Wenny Road is nearly 20 acres in size. We, BCBC, own 40% of it. We own 7.5 acres, and we own the Cooper standard bit of the site. And then the Pontardawe Coal and Metal, part of the Clowes Development Group, they own 60% of the site, 12 acres, and that was where Boodle Park was situated previously. Now, the site was cleared some time ago, nearly 10 years ago the site was cleared, but it still remains vacant and derelict because of the lack of commercial viability. And what that means is that we have to do a significant amount of remediation work, including diverting a historic mining drain and grouting up mine shafts. And all this work needs to be done, and significant infrastructure such as servicing, before that site would become commercially viable. Now, this site is a strategic priority for redevelopment for us, and it has been for some time. And so back in September last year, the Cardiff City region brought forward something called the Housing Viability Gap Fund. They launched it, and it was 35 million targeted at market failures and bringing sites forward, and exactly the type of fund for this type of site. So ourselves, BCBC and the Pontardawe Coal and Metals Limited, submitted a joint bid in January this year. We've done some work with the Pontardawe Coal and Metal Company. We've done a memorandum of understanding about our partnership and some heads of terms, and we would like to come back to Cabinet later on with the detail of that as we progress with this grant. So our bid went in January, and on the 15th of March this year, we were delighted when the Cardiff Capital Region Cabinet shortlisted our site for £3.5 million of funding, which is marvellous news, so we can undertake this remediation on the site and get that essential infrastructure in. Now, this is subject to due diligence, and hopefully this will be confirmed by their cabinet in June, and we're hoping then we'll be able to move forward. So paragraph 4.9 of the report, Leader, sets out what is in the master plan for that site, and we've done quite a bit of work on that with CCR and with our planners to make sure that we have a truly mixed regeneration site, and it maximised our chances of successfully attaining the funding. So what we have got on that site now is 186 residential dwellings of different sizes, of which 15% of it will be affordable. Importantly, we've got the inclusion of a transport interchange at the top end of the site, very near the railway station, which will be a bus stop, a park and ride. And we want to look to put some ULEV, some electric charging points in there as well. And another thing that we're really excited about is that next to the transport interchange at the top of the site, we're going to look at putting some enterprise hubs in there, some small business units. And we know there's a particular demand for these up in Maesteg. So we'll have a section of enterprise units, and then the rest of the site will be a mixture of housing and open space, children's play. So a really lovely master plan there. However, I've got to point out that we did have a retail site in there originally, but we have removed this because we don't want any potential detrimental impact on Maesteg Town Centre, because we're working really hard to regenerate that. So it's a comprehensive master plan, but of course it's at draft stage. Now, if I take you to paragraph 8 and section 8 of the report, we anticipate that the disposal will generate a capital receipt for the council, the disposal of the land, once we've mitigated it. But Bridgend Council will retain ownership of the enterprise units and also the transport interchange. That will stay with us. And we will be the custodian of that grant from Cardiff Capital Region. So we will take possession of the £3.5 million grant, and we will implement the works, the remediation works and the infrastructure works. There may need to be some staff resources, Leader, from BCBC to support this scheme, and they're not included in the grant, I'm afraid, but we'll have to have some project managers and resource from regeneration working on the scheme. but any further financial implications we can report back to you in the future. So if I take you to the recommendations on this one, please, Leader, in section 9, it's to note the progress that we've made on this site, authorise officers to engage with the capital region to take this grant application forward, receive a future report on those contractual heads of service terms with Pontardawe Coal Mining Company, report on any financial implications should they arise, and then finally to delegate authority to accept the grant to myself and our section 151 officer so we can progress this work over the coming months. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Janine. And before I bring Councillor Young in, I will declare a personal interest, not a prejudicial interest, on this item because, of course, I am a member of the Cardiff Capital Region Regional Cabinet, as is each and every leader of the 10 constituent local authorities. And we will be ultimately making a decision on this proposal. But I am appointed to that cabinet by this authority, and therefore it's a personal interest. Likewise, I am chair of the Cardiff Capital Region Transport Authority, and I know that we are considering ways of progressing the park and ride feature of this site, and that will potentially be via the RTA, possibly through the local transport fund or the Metro Plus route, but no final decision has been made on that yet. But I will, of course, declare a personal interest on that as well. And I'll bring in Councillor Young, please.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. I'm happy to move the recommendations. I think this ticks so many boxes. I think you'll agree with me, Leader, that the Wenny Road site has been a thorn in our side for all of 10 years, has been outlined, but I think this is an important step towards rectifying that situation. It is an eyesore, isn't it? I mean, it's a gateway into my stake, and as you pass that, as you look down from the road coming from Bridgend, it looks like a bomb site, and I'm really pleased to see that there is progress, shall we say, into rectifying that. And I think it demonstrates, for instance, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, and I understand that you can't make comment on this because you're a member of the City Deal Cabinet, but this is the value of being a member of the Cardiff City Region. This is the very sort of thing that we envisaged when the Cardiff City Region was set up. We didn't have the money to do this ourselves. Cardiff City Region had come in with the grant. It helps us with our housing situation. It helps us with the park and ride, because I believe that if we can develop this site, then the ability of us to bid for metro money to create the park and ride at the Rennie Road is strengthened. It helps us with our green agenda, with the electric vehicles part of it. It also helps us with the environment, with the children's play area. So all in all, this is a win-win situation, and we're going to have further reports on this anyway. But I'm happy to move the recommendations, if Councillor Smith will forgive me for doing that, because I think it should be Councillor Smith moving it. But if Councillor Smith wants to move it, I'm prepared to second the recommendations.
Go ahead, I'll second it.
Okay, I move the recommendations, and happy to do so. Thank you, Leader.
Yeah, and I'm happy to second, Leader. I think this is an excellent outcome from our membership of the capital region. This and a couple of other wins that we've had, the proposed transport terminus in Porthcawl and activity at Pyle Station, They've more than paid for our membership fee for the capital region already, I should think, with probably a bit of a bonus on top, and there'll be other projects to come. When I was an academic economist, I spent quite a bit of time outside factory gates that were about to close forever with Nick Savini, who was then the business correspondent, and that included that MyStay site. Another one was the Burberry factory in the Rhondda. I can only remember standing outside one factory gate that was to open, and that wasn't actually a factory, it was the Amazon distribution centre, and Amazon wouldn't let us in to have a look what went on inside, which I think was a bit sinister, but that's what happened. Anyway, it's great to see this mixed development on a brownfield site with a transport hub and with housing and commercial property as well. Is great. So it gives me great pleasure to second it, Leader.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Smith. It is indeed excellent news, and I am pleased to see, very pleased to see that commitment to over 180 new homes. I think that is the biggest housing development in my stay and possibly a generation. Certainly, since I've been a member of this authority, I'm not aware of a housing development that big. And there's a commitment there, and we were talking about it earlier, to affordable housing, affordable for local people. And certainly, it's the first proposal that I have seen for a park and ride in the Llynby Valley. Certainly, it might be the first park and ride that has been and will be developed in the Llynby Valley, and it's also the first new enterprise hub that I have seen being progressed in the Llynby Valley. So this is fantastic news for that valley, and it is only possible because of our membership of the Cardiff Capital Region City deal. So I hope that those critics out there and those people who do not believe in the City deal will think about the value of the City deal in this one site alone to our communities, because it has been and it will be invaluable to progress in this site after the time scale that Janine has talked about, because it has been vacant for a very, very long time, and it will be potentially the biggest regeneration. I think it will be the biggest regeneration project for the Llynby Valley in a generation. I've got no doubt about that, and I'm very proud that this authority, Bridgend County Borough Council, is leading that, is driving that forward with the support of Welsh Government and with the support of the Cardiff Capital Region. Is everyone in agreement with those recommendations as they've been moved, please, and seconded?
Yes.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. And we now have another report from the final report from the Corporate Director for Communities, and it is on a proposal for a Dogs Trust Trail, the first such trail in Bridgend County Borough. So Janine, please.
Thank you, Leader. Well, we've had a whistle-top a tour of my directorate today. We've had planning and we've had regeneration, and now this is tourism and economic development, this one. So again, a really favourable report that I'm presenting in front of you today. It's about an innovative tourism initiative for the county. And so the purpose really of this report, Leader, is to request approval for participating and hosting the Dogs Trust Mini Snoopy Trail in Porthcawl next year in 2022, and to enter into an agreement with the Dogs Trust Limited, Dogs Trust Promotion Limited, and ourselves to host the event. And I'd like to outline the costs that are involved. So basically, we were approached by the Dogs Trust to host this mini trail in Porthcawl, Leader. And what we're going to have is a large Snoopy dog statues that are going to be decorated by different charities and schools across the region and in Bridgend, and they're going to be put at up to 6 of them are going to be put at strategic points across the Porthcawl waterfront for 10 weeks from March to June next year. And this builds on an initiative that was done back in 2017. I don't know whether you remember the Snow Dogs Trail that we had around the region then, where you had these beautiful dogs painted by different artists, and children would come and have their picture taken next to these dogs, and they would go around the region. Now, the Snow Dog piece, it attracted over 350,000 visitors over that 10 weeks across the South Wales region, and they estimated £10.5 million for the economy from this attraction. So what they're hoping, the Dogs Trust, is they do the same thing again coming forward. People want to come and see the Snoopy Trail. Now, the Dogs Trust, of course, is a well-known animal charity, and any monies generated would go back to help them. So the Snoopy Trail is not just us, it's across a number of different LAs in South Wales, including Cardiff. They're participating as well, and we've been approached to take part. So Section 3 of the report talks a little bit about why we want to be part of it, and for us it fulfills a number of our corporate wellbeing objectives, Leader and Cabinet, because it supports the local economy, it generates tourism, but not just that, there's also a learning programme that goes along with this Snoopy Trail, and the Dogs Trust are going to engage with 130 schools, many of which are in Bridgend, as part of this initiative, to get them decorating dogs and talking about animal welfare, etc. So there's a lot of education that goes with it. And so they want to create an easy trail that people is accessible. There'll be up to 6 of these sculptures, maybe more, and it'll create a half-day visit attraction. We submitted a number of sites to Dogs Trust where we thought this attraction could work, but they chose Porthcawl as their chosen destination because it was really flat and very accessible, and also already established the walkways there. Now, the Dogs Trust team are going to manage the trail planning and the delivery. They're going to get all the relevant planning permissions, highway permissions from us at BCPC, and they're also going to work with the Coastal Partnership Group and regularly update them, and that's important as well. Now, paragraph 3.7 outlines the sponsorship piece, and this is the cost piece for us at Bridgend. So we are required to enter into a sponsorship agreement with the Dogs Trust. So I'm seeking permission today, really, from you as Cabinet to delegate authority to me as the community director to work on that with legal. And if negotiations progress well, that's great. If there's any risk to the authority, we would not proceed with this initiative, but we think the risk is minimal at this stage, Leader. So in terms of financial implications, Section 8 of the report outlines this. The Dogs Trust are seeking a financial commitment of £30,000 from us to undertake this proposal. This is a one-off contribution and it covers all the costs of the scheme, and it will be provided through our Tourism Events Fund. Of course, what we get from this is a lots more tourists and a boost to our economy in the shops down in Porthcawl. So really, if you think about it, it's well worth participation from our point of view if it drives footfall and revenue. So please, can I take you to the recommendations then, Leader? And what we're seeking today is to agree participation in the scheme as Bridgend, approve the 30,000 from the Tourism Events Funding, and then delegate authority to myself and Kelly in legal to approve the terms of the sponsorship and enter into the agreements on behalf of the council. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much for that, Janine. Councillor Smith is first, please. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I'll just lower my hand, Leader, just make sure that's done. Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to support this recommendation, and I'd like to advise Councillor Young that he needs to declare an interest, because when he was mayor, he visited the Dogs Trust at Pennyvey and fell in love with a little Borough and adopted it. So he has got a personal interest to declare. I think I can remember when there were only about half a dozen, if that, Dogs Trust rehoming centres in the whole country. This might be a false memory, but I can remember when it was just Bridgend and a couple of others. When I came across was in Petersfield in Hampshire, where we used to go on holiday. So this is a much needed charity which is expanding because of that need. I have seen something similar to this Dogs Trust when we were on holiday in France. We saw these dogs along a tram route that we went along, and it seemed to be a similar sort of thing. So I think that Porthcawl is a good location for this. By the way, we have discussed this in local forums with Porthcawl. We've got the Destination Management Group, which deals with tourism, and we've got the Coastal Partnership, which consults with a lot of stakeholders, including the Town Council in Porthcawl. They've all got reps there, and our local BCBC members attend as well. So all those stakeholders have been informed and updated on this proposal. I remember Snoopy and Peanuts from way back. It's a set of cartoon characters that appeal to children on one level and also have a deeper philosophy and appeal to adults as well. So this is a dog's trail for the whole family, and I'm happy to support it.
Thank you for that, Councillor Smith. Councillor Young, please.
Yes, thanks, Leader. Yes, and Councillor Smith is quite right. I probably do need to make a recommendation. I did adopt Toby, our little dog, when I was a mayor. I walked in with the mayoress, came out with the dog. Well, did I say that out loud? No, I came out with the mayoress as well. So we're all right. And I've had a word with Toby, and I've asked his opinion. He said it's a good idea. So, but I think it is a good idea. We've a lot of discussion around Cabinet has been about COVID recovery, isn't it? And I have to say that we have a long association in Bridgend with the Dogs Trust. First of all, they were on Tondy Road, as you know, and they outgrew those kennels, and they've moved to a far better facility in Court Coleman, and it's quite famous, that facility in Court Coleman, because it's recognised as one of the foremost dog homing trusts in the whole of the UK. And I don't know if you remember the old slogan that they used to say in the television: the Dogs Trust, they never put a healthy dog down, and so they need all the help they can. So I'm in full agreement with the Snoopy Trail. I think it will invite people into Porthcawl. I think they want to come and see this. And as word gets round, I think it will bring revenue into the town as well. And I think that, along with the new Noddy train, we're talking about the Noddy train as well, then I think Porthcawl is a good destination for visitors. And I think, especially for young visitors, because I think they can get really involved. So I'm very happy to second the recommendations on this basis, and I'd like to see more of these sort of attractions, if you like, coming into Bridgend County Borough. I don't know what they could be, but I'm sure there are similar attractions that other charities may want to invest in, and I'd like to send a message that Bridgend County Borough is quite open to approaches from them. So I second those recommendations, Leader. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Young. And And I know that you've tried to take Toby back a few times, haven't you? I think, but Mrs. Young is keen that he stays, isn't she? Okay, so
I've already decided that if anything in this house is going to be evicted, it's not going to be that dog.
Councillor Patel is next, please.
Thank you, Leader, and I'm really glad that these meetings are recorded so I can point Annette back in the right direction. Janine, you mentioned that there were a number of different locations that were proposed or put forward to the Dogs Trust, and they selected Porthcawl. Just wondered what they were, because I don't know if it was to do with the COVID recovery and whether or not we're trying to help people back into Porthcawl. I wasn't really aware that there was an issue around tourism or lack of tourism in Porthcawl. So I don't know if there's anything that you can point me in terms of directions around that, and then also the kind of, where else did we suggest to them, just because I'm mindful that Porthcawl is an obvious choice for tourism, and I think that there are beautiful walks within our other communities. I know that there's a lovely, I won't go on about the Ogmore Valley, but the Garrow Valley's got some lovely walks as well, from the country park to the lakes, it's very well connected, and I didn't know if that was something that was proposed and why it wasn't considered, why it was rejected. I think some feedback on that, really.
Yes, of course, no problem, Councillor Patel. Well, they came forward and asked us for a set of requirements, really. They needed, flat pavement, land that we owned ourselves, because we had to grant permission to put them on. They knew that they wanted pushchairs, accessibility for wheelchairs. It was a fairly tough list of things, because they want to be as inclusive as possible for these trails, of course, and it had to be a certain length because they wanted to get 6 in an area. So what we had gone back with is some of our beautiful parks that we thought were suitable were in our ownership and control, and they included parks in the valleys. In particular, in Maesteg and Garrow, Bryngarrow, for instance, was one that was suggested, and Maesteg Welfare Park, I think Newbridge Fields and others. And I think for them, they felt that some of the most accessible places for them was Porthcawl, really, and also quite a lot of footfall as well. So that was their choice, but that's not to say that they wouldn't want to do other things with us again in other areas. They would be keen to explore that. So yeah, we'll keep a dialogue with them going forward. Not a problem.
And that's just really interesting for me, because they've obviously highlighted what they see as accessibility issues in relation to the suggested alternatives. I don't think the community routes, I don't know if you highlighted those to them, but have we now looked at those parks and worked out what those issues could be and how we could mitigate them? Because obviously they've highlighted accessibility as an issue and a barrier to what they wanted to do, and I think if they've highlighted or suggested that, then I think there's something wider for us to look at doing.
No, absolutely. No, the parks that we suggested, we felt were fully accessible. The list that we put forward, I mean, there was lots more areas we could have put forward, but the ones that we put forward we thought were sensible, accessible and readily available and in our control. And from that list they picked Porthcawl, I'm afraid. So well, I'm not afraid, we were delighted they chose to come to Bridgend at all. I think was where we were, but I do understand your concerns about the valleys areas, but I would like to see whether we could do other attractions in those areas, because they have some beauty and they've got lots of benefits that you don't get on the seafront of Porthcawl. We've got so many aspects of our borough, haven't we? From beautiful, country walks, forestries, right down to a coastal environment. We've got it all, valleys to coast, look. So
absolutely, thanks, Janine.
Thanks very much, Janine. Deputy Leader next, please.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. First point is a technical point, I think, and that is the recommendation 9.1 refers to a clause at 4.7, and I'm not sure, do I have a 4.7 on my report?
Ooh, you don't, Emma. I
No,
think you're
no,
I
I'm
think
not
you're
quite sure
right. I think
there's a piece missing out of the report.
No, it's I'm afraid the numbering is wrong. I think it refers to 3.7 of the report, not 4.7. Apologies for that, Deputy. And it's about us entering into a sponsorship agreement with the Dogs Trust.
Right, and so my question then falls on is, what's the legacy of that? You know, what do we get for that 30,000? Will these statues be left in position, or
no?
What happens?
So what will happen is they, as part of this event, there'll be lots of marketing, and these 6 statues will be painted and drawn on and have all sorts of decorations on them by different charities and group and local artists and school children, and they will be cited. And then what we get as being part of this is we get that 10 weeks of increased tourism, publicity, come to Porthcawl, see the Snoopy Trail, the increased revenue, the economic development. That's the benefit for us during next summer by having the Snoopy Dog Trail in our borough. And then what the Dogs Trust gets from it, how they generate income, is that they sell those Snoopy statues at the end of the process, because the snow dogs are then sold, from 2017, different companies bought them, or I think there's one in one of the shopping centres in Cardiff bought one. So the Dogs Trust raise money from selling the Snoopy statues. At the end, that's how they get the money, and we get the benefit from a free tour. Well, it's not free; it's a 30,000 tourism attraction in the borough. It's just so they don't incur costs from putting the event on. Because they are a charity, so this is us assisting them to put this on, but we get the tourism and footfall benefit from it.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, happy with that then. Thanks, Leader.
And it is a charity that Councillor Young and Councillor Smith have spoken about, that relationship that we have, and the value of that charity. And my understanding is they're facing unprecedented demand because of the increase, sadly, in interest in dog ownership, when sometimes people are unable to look after new pets and puppies when they grow up into dogs, and then those dogs have to be homed and rehoused and looked after. And I know that is a cause that many people in Bridgend would be pleased that we will be supporting through this initiative, as well as, of course, the economic impact. And you're clear, Janine, aren't you, from the evidence of previous initiatives, that this will result in a significant number of visitors to Porthcawl, and that is good news. It's very good news, because that will lead to more people spending more money in businesses in Porthcawl, and they need that support, don't they? And we want them to have that support, and we want those visitors, and it will bring new visitors that maybe have never been to Porthcawl before, but will want to come back, and they will want to come back if they've never been to Porthcawl before and experience it for the first time, and it will do that. So that's why I'm supportive of this initiative, because whilst Porthcawl is doing very well at the moment, we want it to do better, and there are still businesses, lots of businesses in Porthcawl, that have lost out because they lost so much of the season last year, didn't they? And they've lost out a lot this year, and we want them to rebuild and recover from that by holding events like this, which are COVID secure. And I'm looking forward to the first Snoopy dog statue being unveiled in Porthcawl. Okay. Is everyone in agreement with those recommendations? Councillor Patel, did you want to come in?
Yeah, just obviously we are working in Porthcawl, and I wondered what partners we were going to be working with. For example, the Town and Community Council. I think they're important stakeholders in that community, and I don't see them referenced in the report. So I just wanted to make sure that they are included.
Yes, they will be. I mean, that's one of the most important bits about this. It's inclusive. So as we get into that partnership agreement and we start negotiating with Dogs Trust, we will ask them to ensure they have a nice wide reach, you know, so we can ensure that everybody in the community feels involved. And again, this is about Snoopy Trail for Bridgend County, albeit it's based in Porthcawl. So we'd want to see a representation from around the county of groups, volunteers, school children to, you know, to colour up these dogs in particular. So yeah, absolutely, that's an important part of the initiative.
Yeah, and I'm sure Councillor Clark, I can see that Councillor Clark is here today. I'm sure she'd be very pleased to hear about that, and I know that the Town Council, and thank you for flagging that up, Councillor Patel. I know that the Town Council would be more than happy to work closely on this, as they do with us on lots of initiatives in Porthcawl. Okay, so is everyone in agreement with those recommendations then, please? Yeah?
Agreed.
Okay. Thank you, Janine. That is, you can have a sip of water now. You certainly deserve it, because that's your last 2 sips of water. That's your last report. And I will now ask the corporate, thank you very much, Janine. I'll now ask the Corporate Director of Social Services and Wellbeing to present a report on the recommissioning of specialist supported living services.
Thank you very much. Please. Sorry. Thank you very much, Leader. For the purpose of the recording, I'm Claire Marchant, Corporate Director of Social Services and Wellbeing. The report that you have before you this afternoon has the purpose of requesting Cabinet approval to implement the recommissioning plan for specialist supported living services for people with learning disabilities. The report also asks approval to undertake a procurement exercise to invite prospective tenderers to establish a framework agreement for commissioned services, and to seek authority to vary the current contract in place at Clos Penglyn by extending the current terms for a further 7 months. As the report sets out, the services which are the subject of this report are specialist supported living services which provide accommodation, health, social care and support for people with significant levels of health and social care needs. And these are really, really important services, as the people who benefit from these services would otherwise be living in residential or nursing care provision. So really important services in terms of supporting independence. The people who live within this accommodation have their own tenancies, and the services are very much designed around the individual needs of the people who live within them, very bespoke, because every individual has quite unique needs, as we all do, and so very, very person-centred in terms of the way that the services are delivered. The voice and the wishes of the people who live within these schemes are very important in progressing the commissioning plans, and key workers within the community learning disability team, within the health board, advocates and family members are all critical in supporting and understanding what matters to each one of those individuals. The paper sets out how the specialist services, which are overseen and directed by the Closer to Home programme, which is very much an integrated programme between ourselves as a local authority, the health board, 2 health boards actually, Swansea Bay, who provide specialist learning disability services, and Cwmtaf Morgannwg, who are the commissioner from a health perspective, and also the support providers, and the current providers are Drive, Mirus and Dimensions. The funding for the service is around £3 million per annum in total, and the proposal is to cap the framework at 20 million, and this will enable up to 4 new schemes to come on stream during the course of the Commission, which is really important because this is an area where we're seeing increased need. Very positively, we have increasing numbers of children and young people coming through transition into adulthood, but bringing with them significant levels of need that require that integrated, holistic approach between ourselves and health services. And that joined up not just in terms of care and support, but in terms of how we commission those services and how we contribute financially to those services as well. And you can see that in addition to the health and social care contributions set out in table 3.9 of the report, there's also supporting people housing support grant into 3 of the schemes there as well. The details of the proposal are set out in 2 phases. The first is to establish a specialist framework of high quality specialist providers, and I think as the report sets out, that importance of the quality taking the predominant role in terms of the criteria for evaluating potential providers is really important. So we would put that framework in place and then seek to call off that framework and put in place individual mini tenders for each scheme as required as the current contracts come to an end. What that enables us to do is to be very measured in terms of the timing of any changes of providers, and obviously from an individual's point of view, continuity, particularly of the staff members, is really important. So it enables us to manage that in a very sensitive and a very person-centred way. As I've already said, the paper also sets out and asks for permission from Cabinet to extend the contract with Drive for the provision of services to individuals in Clos Penglyn for a further 7 months. And the paper sets out the reasons why we're requesting that extension, which are obviously relating to the phase 2 of the COVID pandemic and the delay in carrying out the work. So in summary, the paper sets out a commissioning plan and proposed procurement arrangements to provide quality person-centred services for some of the most vulnerable citizens in the county borough. And I draw Cabinet attention to the recommendations in 9.1 of the report. I'm very happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Claire. Just 2 quick questions from me, please, Claire. I can see then that Councillor Burnett wants to come in. Just to check that and confirm that service users and the families of service users where that's appropriate are involved in the commission arrangements for the care and support that's provided to these people with very complex needs. And then secondly, I just wanted to check. I know that there's reference to some of the specialist provision. It identifies the addresses being in Maesteg and Pencoed of services that we're actually going to include in future commissioning, because it's recognised that those adults have very complex needs. But I wanted to ask where the provision is that's referred to earlier in the report, not the actual addresses, but the 3 sites that are referred to in the report. And I just check in, and I think they're called, aren't they, the Condor, Condor's Rest, Vista, and Close Penglyn. I think one of them is in Brackler, but I'd be interested to know exactly where, please, Claire. And then I'll bring Councillor Burnett, and then you can answer those points if that's okay. Brilliant, thanks. Councillor Burnett, please.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, before I start, I do want to declare a personal interest, as I have co-parenting responsibilities with a child with complex needs going through the transition process at the moment. And for me, seeing that process and how much input our young people have in determining a future that they want to lead, that's the start of the journey, and then these facilities are there to enable them to live the best life possible, and that's why it's so important that this goes ahead. It's a change in the way we do things, but that person-centered approach and then wrapping around each individual so that they can lead their best lives has to be our focus. And so I support this report so that as many of our young people, can live a valuable life as an adult, independent and yet still supported.
Thanks for that, Councillor Burnett. Point very, very well made about the importance of the individual and their choices about their future can be made because it is their lives, and where in the past placements have broken down or lives have not been lived as well as we'd like them to have lived, it's been because there hasn't been as much engagement with the person as there should be, and making sure that we're meeting their needs and their desires and wishes, because complex as their needs are, they will have they will have their own mind, and they will have their own plans and their own wants and needs that we will want to try and meet. Claire, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Leader, and thanks, Councillor Burnett. I think very, very good points in terms of making sure that throughout all of this commissioning process, that the voice, the choice, what matters to those individuals absolutely is at the core of all decision making, and to provide assurance around how we do that. Obviously, the paper talks about the role of the community learning disability team. The social workers within that team are long-standing. They have very well established relationships with the individuals they support and families. They're co-located with health colleagues, and they work in that integrated way with health colleagues who will be specialists in their own field, the community learning disability nurses, speech and language therapists who are experts in communication, to be able to support individuals to communicate in the way that suits them, and other health professionals as well as our social care professionals. Obviously, the report just talks very briefly about the role of advocacy, and that independent advocacy is really very critically important when we're talking about a service change. These individuals will lack mental capacity in terms of the Mental Capacity Act, so making sure we're engaging with the professional IMCA service to ensure that their voice comes through independently to that of professionals, and indeed their families and carers, who are very, very important in this planning, but making sure we hear the voice of the individual. And we will also be working with People First to support that ongoing engagement and communication more generally during the recommissioning process. So that's really important. And then just to pick up the point, Leader, in terms of the locations, 3 of these accommodations are in the Pencoed area. 1 is in Tondy, 1 in Cymfelin, and 1 in Maesteg. And I can go through them each individually if you would wish, but yeah, they're across the county borough. And as we develop going forward through the Closer to Home programme, we will be trying to ensure that we develop as wide a spread as we can in terms of location, that we again reflect those needs and circumstances as we're planning, particularly, as Councillor Burnett said, for young people coming through transition, that they can be as close to their families and communities as possible.
Thanks, that's very reassuring, Claire. And I look forward to receiving future reports on how that provision will continue to be developed across the borough. So Councillor Burnett has moved the recommendations. Do we have a seconder for those recommendations, please?
Happy to second, Leader.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Patel. Is everyone in agreement with those recommendations?
Agree.
Okay, thank you very much, Claire. And we will now receive a report of the Corporate Director for Education and Family Support. And it is a report on the proposed appointment of local authority governors in our schools. Lindsay, please.
Thank you, Leader. For the purpose of recording, I'm Lindsay Harvey. I'm Corporate Director, Education and Family Support. Leader, the purpose of this report is to seek approval for Cabinet for the appointment of the local authority governors to the school governing bodies as listed at paragraph 4.1 in the report. The national and local policies in respect to this paper are summarised at paragraphs 2 and 3. And you'll note, Leader, for the two schools in the table at paragraph 4, 2 applicants met the approved criteria for appointment as local authority governors and there was no competition for any of the vacancies. Therefore, subject to the above appointments being approved, there are still 28 vacancies that need to be filled in 20 schools, and Appendix A refers. Therefore, Leader, I take the recommendations at paragraph 9.
Okay, thank you very much, Lindsay. Councillor Smith, please.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you to everyone who has volunteered for this very important role. And I hope that other community-minded people, and they don't have to be councillors in any shape or form, they just need to be community-minded and willing to do the job. I hope they'll have a look at the vacancy list and consider applying. Thank you.
Okay, so happy to move the recommendation. Do I have a seconder for that then?
Happy to second.
2 seconders. Okay, and is everyone in agreement with those recommendations then?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, everyone. That is the last report that I have on the agenda. I don't have any urgent items that have been brought to my attention as chairperson of this committee, and therefore I will bring this meeting to an end. I thank you all very much for your attendance and participation, and I look forward to seeing you all again, I'm sure, tomorrow for the annual general meeting of the authority. Thank you.
Thank you.